You drive them, I fix them, the bank takes them. Matt, why would you write that on the cue card, man? That just ain't right.
Repossession.
Most importantly, what you'll need is a dust seal, some wheel bearing grease, a pair of side cutters, and channel locks. I have vice grips out here today. Also, you will need either Torx bits or Allen wrench. First, what we're going to do here, we're going to jack up the car. We're going to secure it safely with jack stands. Then, a 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter socket is required to remove our wheel nuts. Your vehicle may be different. Next, we'll remove our wheel, set it out of the way. Now, what we're going to want to do is remove our brake caliper. Before further work is done on the vehicle, always make sure that you have the vehicle secured with a pair of jack stands. Don't go ahead with work until you have these in place. Remember, you got 2 tons of steel in the air supported by a jack. Let's be safe out there. Next, we are going to proceed by removing our brake caliper. If for whatever reason you find them the bolts very stiff, just give them a little tap with your hammer. Just like so. They'll come loose. Once you remove your caliper bolts, take yourself a piece of mechanic's wire, about this long, cut yourself off a chunk, and use it to hold your caliper up. Don't let it hang by the hose. It's never a good idea to let your brake caliper hang by the hose. Your caliper off. Now would be a great time to check your brake pads. And now here is our rotor. Take a look, see for any nicks, burrs. If you're in doubt, have your rotor machined. Take your rotor to a garage and have it machined. Next, take your flathead screwdriver or little pry bar like this and pry off your dust cover. Stick your little pry bar in behind. A little tap, not too much. Turn the rotor, give another tap. And keep going around until it loosens off the hub. Your grease cover or dust cover for any nicks or scratches, dents. It is recommended that you replace this when you do this. So when you go to the auto parts store, maybe you should just go ahead and replace this. I have tons of these in my storage. And this one here is actually in decent shape because I replaced it last year. It looks a little dingy, but this one's in good shape yet, so I'm going to reuse this one. Next, locate the cotter pin and remove it. More than likely what's going to happen here is that the pin is going to either break, or if you're really lucky, sometimes you'll be able to get it off, no problem. got lucky. We got this one out. Always replace with new ones anyway. Take a pair of channel lock pliers and we'll remove our wheel bearing nut. Now, some might think that this nut is tight. No, it's not. If it was over tight, if it was way too tight to the point where your rotor won't spin, that'll actually kill your bearings. Take our nut and thread it off. We'll put it in on our paper towel. We'll clean that up. There is a washer. Slide that off. Next, our outboard wheel bearing. We can now slide off our hub. The thing you're going to notice when you take off your wheel hub is you're going to notice that your inbound bearing is still in there, along with your dust seal. Now, you could simply take a screwdriver and pry off the dust seal, but if you're replacing your wheel bearings for whatever reason, maybe you just want new bearings in there, or maybe you bought a new rotor, just go ahead and use this trick. With our outboard bearing, or inboard bearing rather, still in there, what I'm going to do is slide the hub back on the spindle, take our nut, and screw it on until the threads, until the spindle is just showing, like this here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grasp the hub with both hands, like so, and give it a tug. There you have it. Now, your inbound bearing and your dust seal are out. Always remember, replace your dust seal. Do not reuse these, ever. You can reuse your bearings, but don't use an old dust seal. Next, what you want to do with your rotor is, if you were replacing your rotor with a brand new one, do not use your old bearings. Do not put old wheel bearings on new races. In here, this is called a race. This smooth, shiny part right in here, that's where your wheel bearing sits. If, for whatever reason, there is nicks on your races, you should replace your rotor. Some people actually take the rotors into a machine shop and have new races punched in here with a press. To me, it's just not practical. You might as well just go out and spend the $50 and go get yourself a set of brand new rotors. These races are okay yet. This rotor is fairly new, so I will be using my old wheel bearings. They are in still great condition. But if for whatever reason you feel that your wheel bearings are no longer usable, go ahead and replace them. But do not, if you replace your rotor, do not use your old wheel bearings on new races. Wheel bearings for these vehicles are only $8 a piece. You need 4 of them. 2 inboard bearings, 2 outboard bearings. You're better off to just replace them. Next, what you're going to want to do is take a rag, wipe in behind your spindle, wipe excess grease off the spindle itself. You don't want any contaminants getting in with your fresh wheel bearing grease. Metal shaving or anything could cause premature failure of your wheel bearings. So make sure that it's nice and clean. No dust, no dirt, no grime. Just make sure it's out of there. And do the same to your rotor. Wipe out all the grease. Just like so. That's what you're going to want to do. Find yourself a clean work surface. Take some of your wheel bearing grease. Apply some on the races. Get right in there with the stuff. Just like so. Go ahead and flip it over. Apply our grease in here on our inbound wheel bearing race. Now is the time to repack them. Always inspect your wheel bearing rollers for any damage. If you find something that isn't right with it, replace it. Like I say, don't overlook something like this. So we're going to start with our outboard bearing here. Take a handful of grease and roll your wheel bearing through the grease, like so. This also applies to most rear-wheel drive vehicles, your Chevy Caprice, your old Delta 88, Parisienne, Ford's Crown Victoria, and today mostly your two-wheel drive half-tons, your Ford half-tons. I don't know about Ford, but I know Chev is still doing this with their two-wheel drive half-tons. If you're afraid of grease, maybe you shouldn't do this job. This is the type of job where you get your hands dirty. You gotta love it. Next, take your dust seal and install it. Clean up any excess grease around the edge. Now we can reinstall our rotor hub assembly on our spindle. Take a little bit of wheel bearing grease and apply it to your spindle. Just like so. Just a light film will be alright. Next, install our outer wheel bearing. The tapered end always goes in first. The flat end is where your washer goes. With our washer on, we can now install our nut. Remember, it's never good to have this over tightened. Next, take your cotter pin, and it might be tricky to find yourself a hole. Once you do, somewhere there. Bend the tangs up. Make sure that when you bend your cotter pin, that they're not going to be rubbing against the washer or the dust seal or anything like that. Next, go ahead and reinstall your brake caliper. Next, go ahead and install your tire. And torque them down to the recommended torque specified for your vehicle. Always go in a crisscross pattern. Done with that, you can lower your car, tighten down your wheel nuts, and once you drive your vehicle for a few miles, don't forget to check them again. Make sure your torque is at the specified range that it's supposed to be at. Check your engine oil, all your fluids, your power steering fluid, your tranny fluid. You're good to go.